Hi everyone, I'm Shaylin here with Reedsy. Today we're going to be talking about how to publish a book. We've covered so many different specific topics about the publishing process on this channel in the past relating to both traditional and self-publishing. This is just going to be kind of like your one-stop shop guide for how to publish a book. Certainly it's not going to cover everything you need to know. You're going to want to do individual specific research on all the different parts of the publishing process and your own specific publishing path. But this is just going to be like a general guide for the steps to publish. If you kind of just want that general breakdown, we're going to be covering both traditional and self-publishing, and I'll let you know which steps apply to which path. That's actually the first thing we're going to talk about, deciding which publishing path you want to take. Your options here are basically self-publishing or indie publishing, traditional publishing with a small press, or traditional publishing with a large press, like a Big 5 publisher. We do have a video breaking down the differences between traditional and self-publishing. We also have a super fun quiz that you can take to help you figure out if self-publishing or traditional publishing is right for you, so I'll leave those resources in the description. But here's a quick breakdown of the pros and cons for indie publishing, small press publishing, and Big 5 publishing. So the pros for self-publishing, first of all, you have full creative control. You have control and final say over the book's content, the book's design, the book's marketing, the book's description, where the book is distributed. If you're someone who has a very specific vision for what you want, self-publishing might be right for you. You also earn higher royalties, up to 70% depending on the book's price and the format, compared to only around like 5 to 8% for traditionally published copies. The cons are, first of all, you're responsible for the book's production costs, meaning you have to cover the costs of cover design and editing, and these costs can be fairly substantial. And you're also basically running a small business. You're managing everything yourself. You either have to do everything yourself or you have to organize and hire for someone else to do it. You're also not going to be available for a lot of mainstream prizes, bestseller lists, and grants. For some genres, things like prizes or bestseller lists might not really matter to you, and depending on where you live and how much you rely on grant money, that may or may not be a factor. So for the pros of working with a small press, first of all, you'd be working more closely with your creative team, so you'll likely be able to have more input. There's also a faster time to publication than with big publishers. It's also good for niche books. A lot of small presses publish in a very specific niche, so if you're writing in a very specific niche, you may find a small press that perfectly aligns with what you're writing. And there are no upfront costs for you other than what you might choose to invest in marketing. The cons are that you have lower royalties than self-published authors, and you also have less notoriety than a Big 5 publisher. You also have to be careful when submitting to small presses because there's a higher potential for scam. A lot of small presses also allow you to bypass certain parts of the traditional publishing process. For example, with a lot of small presses, you can submit to them directly, so you don't need to go through the extra step of first querying an agent, getting an agent, and then going on submission. So the pros of traditionally publishing with a large press are that you have an established creative team to work with. You'll have wide distribution in physical stores. There's more publicity and literary prestige available. And again, there will be no upfront costs for you except for what you choose to personally invest in marketing. The cons are that you have less creative control than the other two options, longer publishing times. The entire traditional publishing process can take a really long time, several years, and lower royalties. There is no right or wrong answer. There's just what's best for your book and for your publishing and career goals. If your book is too niche to sell in a traditional market, it might be a great option to self-publish or publish with a small press. Or if it's in a genre that typically does very well in the self-publishing market, like romance, you would probably be better off just self-publishing because there's a lot more money available when you're making such high royalties. If you're going to traditionally publish poetry, this is pretty much always done through a small press. And a literary fiction novel might do better in the traditional market, where you'll be eligible for awards, and where shifts in what's marketable are a lot less volatile and a lot more stable than in a category like young adult. Alright, so let's jump into some advice that pretty much applies to all authors no matter which publishing path you're taking. The next step is to edit thoroughly. Thorough edit is crucial no matter what publishing path you're going to take. If you're planning to traditionally publish, don't think that the editing will be handled by the professionals later on. You're gonna need a really high quality manuscript in order to sell the book in the first place. I'll link a bunch of our editing resources in the description. We're also going to be doing a deep dive into the editing process on this channel throughout the month of May, so if you're not subscribed or haven't turned on your notifications, do so. But for a few quick editing tips, first of all, give some space between drafts. If you do all your drafts right next to each other, it can be really easy to lose perspective and lose focus. Taking a bit of time to breathe in between drafts will allow you to come back with fresher eyes. Most people also find it helps to start with the largest issues and then zoom into the line. So starting with issues relating to character or plot, fixing those things, and then beginning to line edit. But if you're not sure where to start, I would recommend just starting at the beginning and reading your book. You can make edits as you read, or you can just read it as a reader would, but work through linearly so you can actually get an idea, an overview of your manuscript. And finally, make an outline for your edits to stay on track. I'm someone who does not outline my first drafts, total discovery writer, but I do outline my revisions. It's very hard to go into revisions without making some kind of outline. I like to break mine up by chapter, so I just have a list of chapters and scenes and all the changes I want to make to every single scene. I find this super helpful, helps me keep on track, helps me from getting overwhelmed, because editing can seem like such a huge task. The next step is to get feedback on your work. Now, it's important to know that you should fix any known issues on your book before getting feedbacks, because what's going to happen if you know there's an issue with the pacing, say throughout the middle of the book, and then you get a friend to look at it, the friend is probably going to tell you there's some issues with the pacing throughout the middle of the book, and they're just going to tell you what you already knew. Neither of you are getting much out of this experience. Try to fix all known issues and pass it on for feedback when you don't know what else can be done at this point. This way, the people giving you critiques are going to identify issues that you yourself weren't aware of, and no one will be wasting their time. If you're working with beta readers, so a group of readers who read your book and give feedback on it, essentially like a test audience, you'll likely want to provide them with questions or surveys after the book or in between chapters or in between sections to provide some guidance. Beta readers aren't professional editors. They won't always analyze the craft aspect of your book. They're just going to tell you what their opinion is. Asking them specific questions can help you when you're taking that feedback and implementing it, so it's already organized. You also sometimes need to give beta readers a little bit of guidance, so they'll comment on the things that you need help on. If you don't give any specific questions, a lot of beta readers will give very vague feedback, so provide them with some specific questions, things you really want to know about, such as what they thought about different plot points, what they thought about different characters. I personally always recommend finding a critique partner that you can work with long term, someone you can exchange drafts with. You know, this can be a lifelong relationship. And especially cultivating a critiquing relationship with someone where you're comfortable sharing drafts in the early stage and you can get feedback on the book when it's not even that polished. One question people often have is, where do you find people to critique your work? Well, it can be really difficult, and a lot of it just requires kind of networking, reaching out to people, making friends, getting involved in the writing community and meeting people and fostering friendships with them that can turn into a workshop or a critique partner relationship. I will leave a link to our blog post on critique circles in the description to give you some options of communities that you can turn to. But do remember that building a long-lasting critiquing relationship does require a lot of effort. You have to give back what you put in. If you want to get high-quality feedback basically right away, then I would just recommend hiring a professional editor. And my final tip on getting feedback is to make sure that you trust the people you're getting feedback from. No matter who it is, whether you're working with beta readers, a critique partner, a professional editor, you should really trust these people. And that's why I would definitely recommend trying to foster long-term critiquing relationships, or hiring a trustworthy professional, someone who you can trust because they really know what they're doing. After all, they do this professionally. If you are planning to pursue traditional publishing, you don't have to hire a professional editor. You'll work with an editor through your publisher. Although some traditionally published authors do choose to hire editors beforehand to really make sure their book is in top shape before they start querying it. If you are a self-published author, you're going to want to hire a professional editor. Publishing a book that has not been professionally edited is just not very advisable if you want to publish a good, high-quality product. So if you're self-publishing, you'll probably want to go through personal rounds of critiquing with, say, a critique partner or some beta readers, and then also hire an editor a bit later on. The next step is to pick your title. Now, you may have already done this. Lots of people have a title before they start writing, pick one while they're writing, but if you've gotten to this stage and you don't yet have a title, now it is something you want to focus on. You want a title that is in line with your genre but still stands out. It's eye-catching. I think a good title asks a question that the reader wants the answer to, and they can only get that answer by reading the book. If you want more help picking a title, I will leave a link to our video on titles in the cards and in the description. Now it's time to format your book. If you're self-publishing, you'll need to format your book in ebook file formats so you can upload it to your chosen self-publishing platform. We have a tool for that called the Reedsy book editor. It's free and it exports to ebook file formats, so that's a really easy way to do it. There are also page tools like Scrivener or Vellum. With Vellum, you can try it for free, and then if you actually decide you want to use it, then you can pay for the license to export your book. You can also hire a professional typesetter. If you want more elaborate formatting that you wouldn't be able to do on your own, or maybe your book is just more complex. If you're doing something like formatting a cookbook, it probably has a lot of images and photos. It'd be very difficult to format on your own. However, more and more, a lot of self-published authors are choosing to DIY the formatting just because it's probably the safest and easiest thing to do yourself if you don't need anything too fancy. If you're traditional publishing, you're going to need to format your book in a standard way so that you can start submitting it to agents. We've got a video on how to format your book, so we'll leave a link to that. We also have a template that you can use if you don't want to go through all the work to manually format it in Word yourself. All right, now let's stop and take a pause. If you're planning to self-publish, the rest of this video is going to apply to you. If you're planning to traditionally publish, the rest of these steps will still happen. They're just going to be handled by your publisher. So if you're traditionally publishing, now is the point where you want to start querying agents in order to get an agent. Once you get an agent, you and the agent will go on submission, trying to sell the book to a publisher, and all of this will be handled internally by your publisher. So if that's where you're at, I'm gonna leave a link in the cards to our video on getting a literary agent, since that would be your next step. For the rest of this video, these are all steps that self-published authors will be handling on their own. So the next step is to create a cover. And by create a cover, I mean probably hire someone to create your cover for you. Your cover is such an important marketing tool, and it's often the first impression that you make and leave on a reader. This means that your cover should attract your target audience and let them know this book is for them. So you want your cover design to be eye-catching, but also tasteful, meaning it's not too busy, there aren't too many elements. A good cover design will also be genre indicative. Most genres have design standards where readers will be able to guess what genre the book is just from the cover. You'll also need a cover that is appropriate for your publishing medium. So print books will need a full cover spread, so a front cover, spine, and back dust jacket. If you're just publishing an ebook, you'll only need the front cover, and all covers should look good as a thumbnail for people viewing them on screens, whether that's on an online store or something like the Kindle store. This is the place to hire a professional. DIY covers rarely turn out well unless you have significant design experience yourself. And by significant design experience, I don't mean you've made a couple graphics in Canva. I mean like you are a designer. You have extensive graphic design experience. Next, you want to optimize your book's description. Your description is also a major factor in getting people to buy your book, so you really want to make sure it's optimized and effective. This is also something we have a video on. I'm linking you guys to so many other things in this video, I'm sorry, but we'd just be here all day if we condensed everything into this one video. So I'll leave a link to that if you want to check it out. You want to include a hook at the beginning to catch a reader's attention, then introduce the plot and main idea without summarizing the events. You can mention the inciting incident and then hint at how the conflict will evolve and be significant and interesting from there without actually relaying the events. The reader should pick up the book and read on to figure that out themselves. Categories and keywords are also super important. Keywords are related phrases that people will use to search for your book, and categories are basically the genres that your book is nested under on an online store, typically on the Amazon store. We do have a really detailed video on categories and keywords, as well as a detailed blog post on both of these, so again, I'll link all those resources in the description. Next, it's time to plan your launch. Books, sadly, do not sell themselves. You do have to put in some marketing effort, and the first important step is to plan your launch. Planning for a book launch builds hype around your book by tapping into your existing audience as well as working to grow it. We do also have a full video on planning your book launch, so again, if this is the stage you're at and you want to learn more about it, I'll leave that for you to check out. But for some key tips, you'll probably want to form a street team. This is a group of friends, family, or just overall fans or readers who will promote the book on their own platforms to help generate awareness and hype around it. If you haven't already, you'll want to build a mailing list and an author website, something we also have a full video on, mailing lists, and you'll want to get book reviews, a super important promotional tool early on but throughout your book's lifespan. Once again, we do have a video on book reviews, so I'll also be leaving that in the description. And finally, you can throw a launch party, especially during the pandemic. Great option is to do a virtual launch party. In fact, virtual launches might even be better for you than an actual physical launch party because you'll be able to reach people who don't only live in your area. You can guest post on other people's blogs and even host like a live stream and a live reading to celebrate. Maybe even throw a giveaway in there to encourage more people to join. All right, now it's time to publish. Now the actual act of publishing is pretty easy compared to everything else. The process of uploading your book files to Amazon is really simple. So long as you've prepared all these materials in advance, it probably won't take very long. You'll just need to enter your title, description, upload your cover images and your book files, select your categories, keywords, price your book, and then publish it. You do have to choose if you want to go wide, which means selling through a variety of online book retailers, or stay exclusive to Amazon. Being exclusive to Amazon will give you access to KDP Select's features, but it means you can't distribute your book anywhere else. It also may not be a great strategy if your target audience lives somewhere where Amazon doesn't have as much of a monopoly over the book market, say Germany or Canada. It might also not be a very good option if you don't think your book will get many readers on Kindle Unlimited. Again, I'll leave some resources below, both on KDP Select and on Kindle Unlimited, to help you make that choice. And finally, it's time to market your book. Once you've hit publish, the journey is kind of just beginning. Now you've got to market it. Connect with other authors so you can promote each other, maybe do newsletter swaps. You can run a price promotion, and ultimately just keep looking for new opportunities if something crops up, like a podcast or an interview opportunity. Maybe it's something that you want to look into. Like with pretty much every step on this video, I'll leave some resources on marketing below. There is a lot to learn about this. I'll leave some extra marketing resources below for you to further look into and to give you some ideas on ways to market your book. So those are the steps for publishing a book. It can be a long process with a lot of steps and a lot of little things to consider, but if you just take it one step at a time and do research so you can make informed decisions, it doesn't need to be as overwhelming as it might seem. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos from us. We've got new writing, editing, and publishing tips every Tuesday and Friday. Until next time, bye.